The Insider's Guide to Energy Hydrogen mini-series is brought to you by the Hydrogen Dialogue Summit and Expo, taking place December 6th and 7th at Nuremberg Exhibition Center.
This edition of the Insider's Guide to Energy Hydrogen mini-series is brought to you by Force, a leading international strategy and management consultancy with focus on the entire trading value chain.
Welcome to Insider's Guide to Energy Hydrogen mini-series. I'm Chris Sass, and with me is Roman Kunert. Roman, what are we going to be talking about today?
Hi, Chris. Welcome again here to our podcast. Today we have very exciting guests with us, are Marcel Werner and Markus Hölzle. They are both from SENCO, and Markus is also one of the heavyweights in research of hydrogen. And together they will tell us a lot more about how we are going to finance the transition in Germany and in Europe to a hydrogen sustainable economy. Welcome, Marcel. Welcome, Markus.
Hi, my name is Markus Hölzle. I'm a professor at Ulm University in Germany. And in my main job, I'm running an institute with 200 scientists working on hydrogen, fuel cells, electrolyzers, and batteries. And I have a second head-on. I'm a partner at SENCO, an organization that is basically financing hydrogen and the energy transition.
Thank you for that great introduction, and it's a pleasure to be here. I think we share a few insights about a very exciting market. We are talking about more than 300 billion of investments required to develop projects that are announced until 2030. There are more than 1,000 projects all over the world, and this requires a lot of money. So we are talking about money today. In our kind of industry, we're talking about institutional money. We as SENCO consider ourselves a bridge between the institutional capital market and the hydrogen industry. As such, we are fund managers. We actually raise a private equity fund to invest into several kinds of businesses and projects along the hydrogen value chain. More to that a little bit later. Before jumping into the real purpose about SENCO and an economic point of view and a scientific point of view, it is important to understand the hydrogen market in a little bit more detail from funding requirements. And as such, I think it is worth to divide the market into two, let's say, pillars. The one pillar is the infrastructure pillar, which is by far the largest capital amount which is needed, and on the other side you have the manufacturing capacity, so to say the technology and the equipment to make the infrastructure happen. And I think this is quite interesting for the audience because when talking about hydrogen, most of the people engaged are talking about infrastructure, and for us, we are looking more into the manufacturing and the equipment market because we believe that this is the spot where to invest right now.
So basically, Marcel, what you're saying is, so we have this European Green Deal, and as with the New Deal some 70 years ago, now you are providing the financing for this Green Deal with the focus on making the economy hydrogen ready.
Well, yes. As of today, I would say the large proportion of money flooding into the hydrogen economy is coming from large conglomerates, from enterprises. They are investing into their R&D capacity. They are investing into strategic projects, and they are able to do so because they have a strategic aspect when investing. From financial market point of view, that it is important to, of course, generate the required return which is promised to investors. And the other important source of funding, of course, is governmental money. Nearly every important country in the world has set out the national hydrogen plans and strategic programs for supporting their industry. But those two pillars of money are not enough to ramp up an economy or an ecosystem which is more than which has more than 300 billions of capital requirements, it is very important to access institutional money, because those are the largest money pools in the world. And only with that third pillar, it is possible to install the infrastructure, I say, from generating hydrogen or any derivative to make the transportation infrastructure and also the end use of the whole game. Yes, that's what I think.
Is it too early for the institutional investors, or is it time yet? Right. So, I mean, you gave the pillars, but hydrogen's still early. There's still a lot of government incentive to make things happen, government backing to make things happen. So, when's the right time for institutional investors to jump in?
That's a very good question, and we took quite some time to examine the right strategy. And I think it depends on your personal appetite and your personal strategy, or for spoken in the name of organizations. So, for institutional investors, it is important to understand: am I on the infrastructure real asset side, or am I on the private equity side of the game? And when talking about hydrogen, you talk about energy, and energy is obviously part of the infrastructure game. And when establishing a hydrogen project on a greenfield basis, those kind of projects, they take a little bit longer until they return profits to their investors. And that's not always suitable to institutional strategies as of today, because it takes some time until the return is coming back. And on the other hand side, you have private equity investors, and they tend to look on shorter time frames. We're talking about like on average 5 to 10 years until the return should come back, and that is given when talking about the manufacturing side of the hydrogen ecosystem, and that's why we focus on that side.
Is it already happening? Is it still a plan, or are you already financing projects? And if yes, what can you tell us about these projects?
I would definitely say yes. It's already ramping up. You have large infrastructure projects on the one hand side, and you have decentralized projects on the other side. And it is not a clear yes for all the projects, but there are certain projects which are, profitable right up front, and which makes sense, and where offtake is given, bankability is given. It's not on a frequent basis as of today. The challenges are quite high, and for the manufacturing side, that's the most interesting part, because the infrastructure which should be built up needs the technology and the equipment first. So the orders for the equipment, we're talking about electrolyzers and the value chain or the supply chain to deliver parts and pieces to the electrolyzer manufacturers. Those companies, they have a strong demand, and they need extra money to expand their businesses and to ramp up their production facilities in order to meet the demand of the hydrogen ecosystem.
Can you give us a little bit of a showcase of some highlight that you would like to mention with respect to projects, and maybe if you can tell something about the volume you are financing and the time frame, and maybe if you can say something about the profitability of these projects?
To give some numbers, the European Commission set out a target to establish 40 gigawatts of electrolyzer capacity by 2030. Today we have round about, let's say less than 1 gigawatt. So we are talking about a strong growth period in the next coming 7 years. And if you want to build 1 gigawatt facility, then of course you go to Siemens Energy, to ThyssenKrupp, and so on to make an order to order electrolyzers. And there are no gigawatt electrolyzers available tomorrow. So the production facilities themselves, they need to be built and ramped up, and that's why we think we have to look at decentralized projects first, and for municipalities, 10 megawatts, for example, they will work, and you can get 10 megawatt electrolyzers not tomorrow, but within a short time frame. And to make that happen, we as SENCO, for example, we made a partnership with Siemens AG and with NordLB. It's called H2 Jetzt, which means H2 now to be translated. And on that kind of initiation, we want to fund decentralized hydrogen projects, a green hydrogen project, so to say.
I think here's Markus speaking, and to add on this one, I think at our institute, at ZSW, we are doing a lot of hydrogen research together with industry. And we actually had a project running to develop an electrolyzer together with basically small industry partners, typical supplier of automotive industry today. Yeah, they are on the transitioning from the combustion engine to new technologies, and we identified actually 50 companies that could supply basically components into that prototype. And now the companies have to ramp up this. They have to go into the numbers, yeah. And they're small companies, and to do that, they basically need money. So they can get money from the bank, but the banks are also not so eager to spend a lot of money anymore as they had been in the past. I think that's where private equity is kicking in and private money is kicking in. And this is where SENCO will play the role. So we are looking on these supply chains. We are not maybe looking to give money to Siemens. They are too big for us. We are looking into the suppliers for Siemens, because at the end, you need up to 50, 60 different suppliers to build up an electrolyzer. And that's what we have identified. And the good news is the suppliers basically are there. They're coming from automotive supply chain, moving into a new hydrogen supply chain. But to do that, they basically have to invest in new machinery, new buildings in the worst case, and that needs capital. And basically, these guys are familiar in either going to bank or to look for capital elsewhere, but not going directly to an insurance company. They need a bridge in between. And this could be SENCO. Yeah? And again, we see this on a daily basis. We do this for fuel cells. We're operating a big fuel cell test bench, and we have the big guys like Daimler Truck or Bosch as our customers. And what they're telling us is, we can do this. We have the money. We are big companies. But unfortunately, we have to build up our suppliers in parallel. And not so many right now. We need more of them. We activate the companies, make sure that they are investing on their end and they make the future happen. And I think this is where we are kicking in. Yeah. And it's a big number of companies, very small ones, 50 people up to 5,000 people, being in this transition, and especially in Germany, because Germany is much based on automotive, much based on diesel and gasoline engines. This all will go away by definition, and they are running out of time. Yeah. At the same time, Marcel said the European Commission has put really high targets for new investments into electrolyzers with a 40% share made in Europe. That's also pretty interesting with all these deglobalization trends right now. Yeah. So this market will come. This market is needed, and 40% have to come out of Europe. And this is the opportunity. And this is basically our key focus at the moment, not ignoring what's happening around. Yeah, because it really comes down at the end to a missing valve, to a missing pump that doesn't allow the system to run. And this is, I think, where we are supporting hydrogen tanks, hydrogen supply, and not the 5,000 kilometers pipeline. That's too much for us. But the valves, the fittings, the sealing, the control units, or the pressure units, these are the things that are needed. Yeah, and this is basically where we see our focus.
So the analogy or the fact that it's coming from the auto industry, right? There's always a cluster of suppliers. I mean, that's the auto industry. And so what you're saying is the hydrogen industry is going to be an extension of that. So to build electrolyzers and things like that, these companies that would have made parts for combustion engines are going to transform and make stuff in the new economy or for the next generation. Now, it's more than just finance, though, right? So if I'm a large OEM or a huge company, I've got R&D budget and in-house expertise. So does this money just come as money, or are you bringing a different skill set with the money to help these companies make this transition? Because it's a different business.
I think that's the reason why I'm also involved in SENCO as basically being a research guy. So actually, we are doing more development than research. We really do a lot of interaction with industry. So we know the industry. All the players working on fuel cells, electrolyzers are basically a partner of us. Therefore, we can bring people together. We can make the links. Yeah, we can basically let the information flow forth and back. So I think we're really offering from SENCO an add-on, not just the money. We bring expertise, we bring basically partnerships. I think that's the really unique selling point that we have. Yeah. And it's more than money. It's money and value that we want to bring. And again, it's a team of people that is just motivated to make hydrogen happen. I think it's also from a private point of view. We all have a background in different areas, but we have one focus point, that's hydrogen. And since we are not acting as a bank and as an insurance company, very, very slow and very slowly moving and a lot of things to be done in between, I think that's what the industry needs right now. They need basically speed, they need pragmatism, they need interaction, they need links, and of course they need money. And I think that's basically what we want to bring in as SENCO.
That's very interesting. So where do you see the biggest challenges at the moment? Is it on the sourcing, so to find investors that are willing to invest now, or is it more on the client side to convince the clients that this is the best way going forward to acquire capital necessary for the transformation?
I think as of today, the biggest challenge is to tell the story right and to make sure that everybody understands that hydrogen is part of the future energy system, because some people out there believe that hydrogen is just another thing and will vanish in like a couple of years, or maybe it takes like another 20 years compared to the automotive thing we saw with BMW and Daimler at the beginning of 2000s. So there's a lot of convincing, even though there is hydrogen all over the newspapers every day. That's the interesting part of it. We as SENCO, we see hydrogen as the perfect match together with electricity. It's the ultimate power couple, and as such, we believe we invest into a clean and decarbonized future. And we are not just giving them money from A to B, but we also add value to the investments. And as Markus said already, we make sure that we connect the right people, that we have expertise on technology which other investors don't have. And that's why we are quite unique in our setup.
I think to add on this, I think you mentioned what's more difficult to find investors, and we found investors, we have investors, we're getting more investors, and we have basically proposals on the table from potential customers or companies looking for money, looking for funding. I think what Marcel says is basically, yeah, hydrogen and green electricity, that's the couple that we need in the future. Green electricity is right now in the focus. That's pretty clear. So installation of wind turbines and solar, but it's running somehow. It's some kind, it's moving on, yeah. And the more renewable energy we have in the grid, the more will the need for storage and bridging become a topic. And this is hydrogen. Yeah. So give us maybe 1 more year, maximum 2 more years, and people will be frustrated because their solar is producing electricity that nobody wants. Yeah. And they have to waste it or getting disconnected. That's really happening already right now, and it will become a severe problem. So I think the time for hydrogen is coming in the next 1-2 years. We are ready, and the industry is already ready. And another point to what is pretty interesting compared to batteries, for instance, lithium-ion batteries. Lithium-ion batteries is an Asian show. All the development, all the key players are sitting in Asia. That's not true for hydrogen. So all the key players, all the technology can be made in Europe, including the machinery and everything that you need to produce. This is what we see. So it's a great thing to have something in Europe as a technology provider, as a product provider, and it's something we would like to nurse and to support with our money.
So this is an interesting point. So it's not only about helping the German Mittelstand, the German SMEs, it's about helping Europe to make that transition in comparison or in competition with other big players in the world, like China, you mentioned China, or maybe even in America. Would you agree?
Exactly. And I think I think in China has put hydrogen fuel cells in their 5-year plan. They're starting to work on it. They're working on it. And if China has something in the 5-year plan, it will come. That's pretty clear, because government wanted to have it. In US, we have the IRA basically subsidizing hydrogen, came out of a blue, with a pretty high subsidies. So from that point of view, Chris mentioned, government is pulling forth and back. In US, it's pretty clear the direction now. So Europe is a kind of in a fast follower position. Out of a sudden, it was in the prime position. I think it was understood in Brussels, it's understood in the big countries, especially France and Germany playing a key role there. From that point of view, we are not limited to Germany at all. We see Europe as a focus. I think Europe has understood that they only can survive if they really have sizable production capacities in hydrogen and green electricity. And that's basically what's happening right now. So I think the horizon is clearing up all the kind of uncertainty and the fog that we had seen for many years. It's really cleaning up. This is what I see in my daily interaction with politicians, other scientists in the industry. And it's a fantastic couple of green electricity and hydrogen. And this will happen. I think this question, will it happen, yes or no? I think that's answered. And over the next 1-2 years, we will see a big push for hydrogen just to store the energy, the excess of green energy, of green electricity that we will generate.
And Markus, following up on this, in your position as one of the leading researchers and as one of the directors of the institute that's doing a lot of research on hydrogen, is Europe in a good position when it comes to research? Or do we need to do more to be able to compete with these other markets?
I think you always can do more, but at the moment, I have to say the funding is extremely good in Europe and in Germany. And just a discussion to name 2 companies, for instance, in the fuel cell field with Daimler Truck for heavy duty and Bosch, and they both confirmed that Europe is in the front seat there, clearly in the front seat. I think we are even with the US in the electrolysis, what is basically not too bad, but in both areas we see the Chinese catching up. Also from that point of view, it's important that Europe is basically now accelerating everything that's happening to really stay in that top position. It's in our hands right now. And I think putting sufficient funding into small companies it's a puzzle, a piece of the puzzle here. And this is where we are working on. Of course, we need governmental subsidies. We need whatever European rules. That's all out of our responsibilities. That's the political part. We need the big players investing. That's happening. We just mentioned the names, Siemens, Bosch, Daimler, and so on. But we need the Mittelstand, the mid-sized companies to basically be ready for that race. And they don't typically have the EBIT margins like the big guys. So they have to be capitalized. And that's what we are doing. And I think we have found an interesting niche for us, for SENCO, but even more for the companies being involved.
That's really, really interesting. So I think what a lot of people don't realize is that the transition is already taking place. People are not waiting for, is it going to be the molecules? Is it going to be the electricity? But they are acting now, and you seem to be a very active part in that transition.
I think that's for sure, And I think our institute, the task of our institute is basically in our funding documents to really accelerate the transition from science into reality, to really work at this interface. And we are doing this in 35 years. All time on hydrogen. So we have 35 years experience in hydrogen research, and I have to say the speed that we see right now is overwhelming. However, the competition that is rising up, especially in China, is the same here. And from that point of view, we have to use this opportunity. And for us, for SENCO, I think it's the right company at the right spot at the right time. From our point of view, we are supporting with research, we are supporting with prototypes, with development, with interaction. But we see, if we talk with many of our customers, that there will be a high need for capital to really make this happen in a short time, because we are discussing also only a few years for this transition. It's maybe until 2045. It sounds long. It's not. Because of the next 2, 3, 4 years, this market will shake out the players. From that point of view, you have to be in, and you have to be in right now, and you have to do the investments. Officially, Europe gives time until 2050. That sounds quite long, but you have to be done completely in 2050. That means the transition has to be started right now, and that's actually what we see. And I think the market will shake out the players over the next 3 to 5 years. That means if you want to be in, you have to go in right now, and you have to basically prepare your products and to make yourself ready. If you wait too long, the market will not take you anymore. That's what we see. The rush is basically starting now. And that's the opportunity, and that's why we think it's happening right now. Because at the end, we have to build up the capacity, the manufacturing capacity, the value chains, and then we have to invest like crazy for 20 years to get things done until 2050. Actually, Germany already 2045.
You bring up a good point. You talked about the market. Where is the market today? So Germany, EU, global, what is the market demand for green hydrogen? Because hydrogen's demand's been there, but for what we're talking about, maybe using green hydrogen or other molecules, what's the demand look like?
If green hydrogen was around in sizable volumes, everybody would take green hydrogen. It's pretty easy. I think because it would help you directly to decarbonize your value chain. So I was working 25 years in BASF, big chemical company, biggest hydrogen consumer in Germany. If they had access to green hydrogen, they would take it, but it's not available because you have to build up the manufacturing capacity, like Marcel said, the infrastructure, everything. And that's a big problem. So I think you have to do this like we did with the green electricity, starting maybe 15 years ago in Germany, to really build the first wind turbines, the first solar panels, and then step by step over the years this will come. And Germany managed to get 50% of green electricity right now after basically 15 years of massive investments and installments. And this has to be now copied for hydrogen. And again, whatever is available as green hydrogen, people will take it because it helps you.
Well, maybe, right? I mean, so I'm watching, if you listen to the news when we're recording it this week, I mean, a couple, Ørsted canceled a few huge wind projects. The battery demand is down. Economics are still economics. So people do understand that climate change is real. They understand that carbon's a problem, but not at any cost. So what cost is green hydrogen exciting? So I don't believe that they would just take it. There's got to be a market cost that makes sense.
Yeah, I think you basically need early adopters. It means companies or technologies that can afford high hydrogen price. And for instance, the highest one that we know right now is the heavy duty transport. If you compare with a diesel fuel and a heavy duty truck, you can afford to give your number 9 euros per kilogram of hydrogen. If you look into BASF, the big chemical industry refineries, they are more looking into 2 to 3 euros maximum. But of course, their demand is bigger. So you have to find the right partners, the right customers, and then you can make things happen. I think, as I said, we have these things. First of all, small applications, heavy-duty transportations, and then step by step going into the industries that desperately needs hydrogen, like steel production, for instance, or chemical industry. So I think that's a chain that we see. And that's something that we really would like to support, especially since everything can happen then decentralized. For instance, transportation is a decentralized business, so decentralized filling stations are needed, decentralized hydrogen production. That's how we see this thing ramping up over the next years. In addition with, of course, import of hydrogen into Europe that will be needed midterm and long term. But that's another story.
The buildup of the infrastructure for green hydrogen can also be used in the beginning for gray hydrogen, right? Or for other colors of hydrogen that are not 100% green.
Yeah, of course. Hydrogen is hydrogen. You're basically looking onto chemical properties. However, there's still, as Marcel said, the politicians have spent years on a color definition of hydrogen. What basically, at the end of the day, is a waste of time. We need more pragmatism, and this is now really happening. Also within, for instance, the green parties that we really see, they see the demand, they see we are running out of time. We have to act pragmatically. Maybe it's not 100% green from the beginning, as it's not the case for electricity. Everybody knows that, And it also will accelerate the whole thing. So again, we see things really happen. So we had to, for instance, in our institute, we had to expand our testing capacity by a factor of 5 to serve the industry needs. That tells you something. And this is all happening in other areas. From that point of view, we are more than confident because we really see it's moving on. It's a good time to support the industry. And there will be ups and downs. It will not be a straight road. It will be a bumpy road to some extent. Again, what we are doing here to give up an existing energy system and to replace a completely new one, I think that mankind have never done before. From that point of view, we are looking into a big crystal ball and still not getting an answer. But that's a part of the story. And again, that means there's some risk in the business. You need some risky capital also. People are willing to give the capital under these circumstances. And again, that's where SENCO is kicking in.
That is fascinating, and so you are actively supporting or actually implementing the German hydrogen strategy, as we learned.
Yeah, I'm heading the advisory board here in the state of Baden-Württemberg, basically consulting the local government. And by that, we have also channels into politicians. What is, I think, very important, because in a democracy, politicians are setting the frame. And the thing is, the frame is not set in the right way. There will nothing happen, as Chris said, moving force and back by government. So that's something we can do, yeah. And I think a little bit make sure that the directions are good and the timing is good. But again, as I mentioned, this was a big discussion some years ago. Politicians have understood. And there's a lot of more pragmatism right now in the political decision making as it was some years ago. I think a little bit also the push, let's say, the push from the outside is bigger. Yeah? We mentioned the IRA, we mentioned China, that's also understood. If we are not moving here, we may end as we did with the solar energy, where Germany was number one global producer some 15 years ago. And now China has taken over everything, and Germany is basically completely out. That's something I think, not talking Germany means now Europe, also in France, the same thinking in other countries. This should not happen again. That means we now have to make sure that these companies develop quickly, the market will be defined, sales could ramp up, things will happen, users will be defined. And I think this is what is understood and what is now implemented step by step by the politicians.
As we pull this together, but your final example of solar, I see this as a different use case, right? So based on what SENCO is doing, what you've talked about here, and building an ecosystem of suppliers, it seems a bit different, right? So when every PV panel, or majority of them, are made inexpensively in China, that's one thing. But to make electrolyzers and to make and have heavy industry using and be an off-taker of the hydrogen, it seems to be a slightly different equation here. Am I misreading what you're saying, or is it still as high risk as maybe solar was?
No, I think solar is basically billions of repeating units. Yeah, it's basically always the same. It's different story to fuel cells and to electrolyzers, because that's more or less machine building stuff like the machinery industry is doing, and that's still where China is not leading. Still, the German European industry leading that. So it's a different story. Yeah. I think, but on the long term, again, if something is interesting for the Chinese government and for Chinese industry, they will look into it and they will work on it. Yeah. Right now, we are ahead here in Europe, I think slightly followed by the US. If you look at the overall picture, China is not ahead at all. Yeah, it's really important to note, and this is the window of opportunity, and this is what we want to capture. Yeah? And time is running, and we have to quickly make it happen. And therefore, especially small companies quickly need capital to do this transition together with the big guys that we mentioned. And I think that's the opportunity, that's the time window we are now in.
I really like this atmosphere of that we are embarking on something, or we have the chance to now start to embark on something that is very, very transformative. So there's this feeling in the air, and I think it's a good feeling, and I hope that our listeners were able to also get a sense of this feeling of departure, of this feeling of the transition, and also the opportunities we have in front of us. I thank you, Markus and Marcel. We thank you for being here. Hydrogen is such a big topic that there will be lots of opportunities to learn more about this. And one of the opportunities that's coming up very soon is the Hydrogen Dialogue in Nuremberg on December 6th and December 7th. So if you listeners want to learn more about this transformation and about hydrogen, please come to Nuremberg, come to the Hydrogen Dialogue, check out our website, and check out Markus and Marcel and SENCO.
Well, Chris, Roman, thank you for having us. It was a pleasure to be here, and I can highly recommend going to the Hydrogen Dialogue in Nuremberg. I'm happy to see you there.
Yeah. Also, thanks from my end. Again, hydrogen is a small molecule that is loaded with a lot of expectations, but SENCO will play a little bit of a role there to make it happen.
Fantastic. For our audience, we hope you've enjoyed this content. in this hydrogen series. There's more episodes yet to come. If you haven't caught the first couple episodes, you might want to go back and have a listen or see folks at the dialogue. Thank you so much, and we'll see you again next time on the Insider's Guide to Energy Hydrogen miniseries. Bye-bye.